Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Bhadram Karnebhi Shrunuyama Devaah Bhadram Pashyema Akshabhiryajatraah Sthirairangaistushtvagum Sastanubhi Vyashema Devahitanyadayuh Swasti na Indro Vriddhashravah Swasti na Pusha Vishwavedah Swasti nastarksho Arishtanemihi Swasti no Brihaspatirdadhatu Om Shanti 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 Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So let's pronounce the first and the second mantras of Upanishad. Om ityetadakshara idagum sarvam tasya upavyakyanam bhutam bhavad bhavishyaditi sarvam omkara eva yaccha anyatrikalaatitam tadapi omkara eva. Number 2, sarvagum hi etat brahma ayamatma brahma so ayamatma chatushpat. So as we were looking in the last class, the third name for me, for us, for you and I, individually and collectively, is the Aham. So we saw Upanishad was the one name, and then Om is the second name, which is the one that we are going to primarily focus on when we start studying. But just to clarify some other things, Aham also is a name for us. So what we said was that in my life, I only know how to deal with dravyas. We can call it vastu, but vastu should be reserved to the self. You can say dravya. Dravya means something tangible. So we only deal with dravyas, and dravyas are of two kinds. Sthula dravyas, tables, chairs, people, weather, trees, etc., etc. And sukshma dravya. Sukshma dravya is all the varieties of thoughts that we have, including sukha dukkha, disappointments, etc., etc. These are all sukshma dravya, and they're there. It's not that, oh, even the child knows, I'm unhappy, I'm hungry. Those kinds of things are also dravyas. So now the thing is that for us to conduct our lives effectively, we must have a name for all the dravyas. Without a name, it is very difficult to transact. You know, the latest example is COVID. So, for however reason it had began, we found that people were really getting sick and dying due to some strange disease. And so the scientists started to look into the makeup of the virus that was affecting people, and they gave it a name COVID. I'm very happy that they gave, all of us are very happy that they gave some name to it, because it would have been very difficult to say, that virus which, there was some outbreak in this area. They say, which virus? They say, well, we don't know the name of it, but finally a name had to be given. And once a name is given, then the dravya itself, because the virus is a dravya, the dravya itself could be referenced inferentially without having to touch it. God, goodness. I know a couple of the students just got COVID. Akshay I was just informed, just got COVID. I hope that you're okay. And many of us have had COVID. I've had COVID. So it's not necessary that you have to touch COVID to really experience it. People will say it's very nice that just by the name you can uh, you can uh, uh, you can hopefully prevent it, hopefully contain it, hopefully test it, and hopefully treat it by the name COVID. I mean, once you have testing and so on, then you have to see whether it is the vastu, the dravya called COVID. So anyway, all I'm saying is, all Shastra is saying, not I personally, that all the things in the world must have two things. One is nama and one is rupa. The rupa is the form, the actual dravya, and nama is the name for it. So we have done that much. Okay. So these are called, just to reiterate, in Vedanta, abhidhana and abhidheya. Abhidhana is the name and abhidheya is the dravya. So COVID is the name and the actual virus, God forbid we don't touch it, is the dravya. Okay. So now we have ourselves, if you look at yourself, we have many different references to us. One is our given name. So this is what it says, given name. The last name you inherit from your parents, although not all communities do that. I know that in southern India, a lot of the names are actually derived from their village names. But anyway, there's a common name. Then there is an individual name given by the parents. So we are referred to by many names. And some names that we don't like, people can give some derogatory remarks about, oh, that fool. That's a name. And so there are various names given to us. The question is whether these names that are given to us represent us accurately or not. Do they describe it completely or not? So they don't. And it's a match between an incomplete name and an incomplete idea of me as a dravya. Incomplete idea of myself as a dravya. How so? Because if you ask anybody, do you know yourself? Because if you have a name and you know yourself completely, then that would be an accurate name, isn't it? But you ask somebody, do you know yourself completely? And they'll say, yeah, kind of, I know. What do you mean? I know. Doesn't everybody know himself? Well, we don't. How is it? Do you know what your past was? You know when you manifested as an embryo in the present life, then you are told this is who you were. You know, it's interesting. They say that you talk about, interesting, we talk about Shraddha. Shraddha means that you have to have some implicit, you can call it kind of like a faith in someone. Do you know the ultimate Shraddha, in Vedanta points this out, is who is my father? It all depends on the word of the mother. You don't know it. You don't know it personally. More only that, when did you begin? When did the embryo get created? And it is now all very scientifically and otherwise also determined that when the semen of the father enters the mother's womb, this is the beginning of, there's a possibility that the embryo will begin. Well, that means you were in the semen of the father. How long? Where did that come from? And then you say, well, don't ask me all these questions. Okay, I don't know. That is the answer. We don't know. You don't know how you began. And death we will talk about in detail later on. But I can just tell you, you don't know when death comes. You can never experience your own death. Not only that, you don't even know when you went to sleep. This is a very funny thing, really speaking. You cannot say, oh yes, I can find out. Okay. All right, you can find out when you go to sleep. Okay, take your watch out. 1, 2, 3, and say, okay, when you go to sleep, just note it down. Now I am asleep. Then I would agree. But when you go to sleep, you won't be able to touch the button, the watch at all. So we don't even know when we go to sleep. Anyway, the point is, and then on top of that, we don't know how we function. We don't know what makes me happy. We think we know, but we are not sure. All of a sudden you woke up this morning and somebody said something to you and you've had a bad mood without your knowing. And that continues on for a long time. Suddenly something happens, you're very happy. When you become happy, when you become unhappy, you don't know. When you get sick, how you got sick, what's happening, you don't know. So don't tell me you know everything. It's not true. So therefore, a partial name is appropriate for a partial understanding of who we are. And we somehow manage our life and say, don't tell us all about all this. It's okay. I'm able to function. That's enough for me and so on. But if you were to now start looking at who are you, because who we are is a complete person. If you analyze your life, you find that I accept myself as an incomplete person because I don't see any choices. It's not as though somebody told me, okay, do you want to be totally happy without any condition? That means a complete person, independent. Or do you want to be a limited person who is partially happy some of the time? That choice is never given to me. Who is going to give that choice? People don't know there is a choice. So I accept myself as an incomplete person. But am I happy being an incomplete person? This is what the constant complaint is throughout my life. I'm not done. I'm not done. I want something more. I want something more. And in the process, my body is waiting for you to quit your shruti, this background shruti. I'm not happy. I'm not happy. I want something new. I want this. I want this. And the body says, okay, I am getting tired and I'm getting old and this guy is still wanting more things. And so that desire never really leaves me. Did I give you this verse from? I noted it down. I forget these things, but from Adi Shankara's Bhajagovindam. I wrote it down. What happened to me? Not in today's class. Let's look at it. From last class, 27. I can forget it. Anyway, I wrote it somewhere down, that Bhajagovindam verse which says, I can't remember it, that's why, that the body gets old and the person actually is now bent over, has lost all the hair, everything is turned gray, the skin is all wrinkled, and death is approaching, and the body is getting tired, but nahi nahi munchati. What the heck? I love that verse. I think that this is Kaushitaki Vijisasaswa. Dwasuparna I had already told you about. I can't find it. Okay. So the point is that we accept our incompleteness, but we don't like it. Because, and the reason for this catch-22 is, we are not incomplete. We are complete. We just don't have an understanding of what completeness means. And really speaking, you know what completeness is? This is defined by the word Brahman, Brahma. So I think there was a class in there was some dialogue in the Purusha, no, in this class that we finished on Tuesdays, Shiva Sankalpa Suktam. And there was a dialogue about, I think somebody had asked about Brahman, Brahma, and Brahmaji. So just a quick summary for those of you that are new to that. So Brahma is different. Bra means B-H-R-A-M-A, Brahma. So Brahma means a confusion, a wrong understanding. So keep that aside. So now we have two other words. One is Brahman, which is a neuter word, Napunsikalinga. And the other one is Brahma, which is a Punlinga, which is a masculine name. So Brahma, the masculine name, is one of the three trinities, trinities, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. So that's Brahmaji, Brahma, that's a person, that's a Purusha, male person, kind of like the father of the whole creation is Brahmaji. Whole creation means in this kalpa, in this 50 million years, the first one is Brahmaji. That's different. Brahman, what we call Brahma, the Nakara is removed, it's a neuter name, is the name for a complete being. So it comes from the dhatu brihat. Brihat means big. And big is a noun, not a quality. That's an important thing to know. Brihat Brahma, a complete being, is a noun, not a vishesha, not a not a quality. Like for example, one can say, "My God, I saw a big rat." Did you really just see a big rat? Yes, that was a huge rat. How big was it? 1 foot long. And then, so the bigness there is a quality. And then you can say, I saw a big mountain. Mountain means what? Billions of tons of rock. Huge. So there is a 1 foot rat and this huge mountain. So there the word big is a quality of the noun that it is referring to. Big and small. But suppose you say a big. So people will say, a big what? And you say nothing. A big. This is the issue. We don't visualize, don't understand, don't accept, don't transact with anything which is not a quality. You cannot just go around and say big. You have no idea what a big is. So Brahma, which is a complete person, means Ananta. It is so big, you cannot, it's a noun. You cannot contain it. It's infinite, in fact, everywhere. You cannot say wherever, you cannot say at this point Brahma is not, because that would limit it, isn't it? By time, you will say at certain time, Brahma was not there. Brahma was born. It means he was born before that, Brahma was not there. Or you can say Brahma only goes into our galaxy. The other galaxies, there is no Brahma. So Deshataha it is Parichinna. Then Kalataha it is Parichinna. Vastutaha it is Parichinna. No. This is Aparichinna Brahma, which is a complete person. But a Dravya, a person. Even more than Akasha. The Akasha is a Dravya which comes close to Brahma, because it is unlimited. Wherever you go, there will be Akasha. Except for, really for two things. One is, Akasha is in the mind of the person defining it. How can you say that? People will say, what? Akasha is everywhere. It is not in the mind of the person. Yes, it is in the mind of the person. So prove it. Prove it that it is not in the mind, that it is in the mind of the person. You know, I'll step back, and when this will come up again, so I want to talk a little bit about that. This proof business. So, as many of you have already seen, we have talked about it, that for us to have a complete understanding of something, we must have, this is what is called, there is a saying which says, Lakshana Pramanabhyam Artha Siddhi. There's an interesting Sanskrit word, a sentence that you may want to make a note of it. Lakshana pramanabhyam artha siddhi. So it means that artha siddhi means that something to be there, to be proven that it is there, it must have two things. So this is a dual case, lakshana and pramana. Both of them have to be there. Once they are satisfied, then there is artha siddhi. Then the thing is there. If one of them is not satisfied, then the artha siddhi cannot take place. So lakshana means something that is unique to it, to something. That's called lakshana. That is further defined. Again, I don't teach often enough, and my memory also is fading. Otherwise, I could just bring those shlokas in my mind. It says, other lakshana vyavritti artha. Yeah, something like that. It means, vyavritti means that it must be devoid of any of other lakshanas. Only unique. Everything is unique. Actually, everything is unique. Even our thumb. This is the most amazing thing about the creation of Ishvara. Do you know no two thumb prints are alike? That is mind-boggling, honestly. How can you create exclusivity in this small 1 inch by ½ inch square inch space? Incredible. So this is called lakshana. Lakshana means something unique. Pramana means something which is a proof. Somebody has to say, yes, this is a unique thing. So every person is a unique. So you can say, yes, I met President Biden. I saw him. You can say that. My son was telling me just a couple of days ago, he was driving back from somewhere. I think he had gone with his family. And suddenly at the red light, he stopped, and there were a couple of pedestrians moving. And all of a sudden, this is just this last week, 49ers had a big win. They came from behind to win the NFC title against Detroit. And so this person going there was Joe Montana, the very famous quarterback in the days when 49ers were doing so well. So my son and his wife, and they'll say, oh my gosh, there is Joe Montana. And just for being polite, they didn't honk the horn. Otherwise he'll be startled and saying, what is this? But they enjoyed seeing Joe Montana in person. So this is called pramana. He just texted me and says, Dad, I just saw Joe Montana. Very interesting. And so there was a unique, I asked him, I said, are you sure? He says, my goodness, he was, and sure enough, he was also, when the 49ers won, he was also cited as a big guy. He was here, that means, obviously. So lakshana and pramana are both required for artha siddhi. Okay? Now, the question is akasha okay, now even before I go back to the example of the akasha, one more thing. Okay? So, now that you know that lakshana, pramana, bhyam, artha siddhi is there, we have 3 things that can give us some pramana. And you know this by now. I'm not talking about the six pramanas. I'm talking about for myself to know something very definitely, there are three filters that we go through. I don't know if you can search through your mind in the discussions that we've had. Anyway, one of them is Shruti, one of them is Vyukti, and the third one is Anubhava. So Shruti means a pramana, means a pramana. B means that yes, definitely, this is what it is. Somebody has to tell me that. And the importance of that we will see in more detail as we study the Karikas. But for now, the Shruti is one source of my understanding, my taking Artha Siddhi. Second one is Yukti. Yukti means that it is it must be logical. Logic is called Yukti. It must be reasonable. So you can say that something which is, if you add 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, then it should be 5. You gave me 5 bananas. You gave me 1 banana, another banana. After that, there are 5 bananas. So then somebody can say, I brought 10 bananas and I gave you 5. So you can, through your anumana, through your yukti, you can say, okay, 5 more are left. You gave me 5, 5 more are left. This is called yukti. Third one is anubhava. So this is a very important thing to see. Just put that aside. We will use this presentation at various places in the Karika. So out of the three, which one is the most important? Now the Shruti, of course, is important because it gives you the hint. So it tells you this is what it is. And it has no agenda. It's not trying to get any money out of you or anything like that. It's a scientific fact. This is Shruti. So you leave that aside. Now go back to the other two. This is what I wanted to do. Go back to the difference between Yukti and Anubhava. Which one is stronger? Think about it. Anubhava. When you see someone, my son said, I saw Joe Montana. You cannot say, I don't think he could be there. Sometimes it happens to us, all of us. In fact, at the beginning of the year, my wife is very fond of doing that. There is some programs, either in Hollywood or other places, where they go through all the people that have died that last year. And so she was just watching this program just a couple of weeks ago. And I forget the name of a couple of people. She said, I didn't know that she had died. I thought she was alive. So you cannot just presume something. You have to know for a fact. Now I'm doing all of this in terms of saying this yukti and anubhava is going to come up again and again as a comparison. Very important fact, I'll tell you. They will come later. But for now, why I brought into this detailed discussion is whether akasha is in the mind of a person or not. It doesn't look like. So now you can use yukti. You can say yukti. What is the yukti? What is the logic? Persons come and go. A person's mind also comes and goes. But the Akasha is always there. This is the Newtonian truth. Newton had said that the Akasha is like a stage where things are happening. It itself is not participating, but it is there. This is what space is. Isaac Newton, very smart guy, he said it, and it's our experience also. So how can you say that the Akasha is in the mind of the person? All right, are you ready for this? When you are asleep, is there Akasha? For deep sleep, there is Akasha and there is a dream Akasha. So the dream Akasha is actually different from the waking Akasha. So there is a waking Akasha, which is a Vyavaharika Sat. We all share it. Agreed. No question about that. But even the individualistic dream Akasha is a different Akasha. Because in the waking Akasha, it could be blue. In the dream Akasha, it may not be blue. In the waking Akasha, it may be polluted, like New Delhi, where you cannot even see the sun until about 10:30 in the morning. I don't know how they're going to solve it. It's just going to be a huge problem. But in the dream Akasha, you don't have pollution. So the dream Akasha is different. Right away, you can say from your perspective, because everybody has, everything that we have to look at is from one person's perspective. Otherwise, we'll never solve this problem of freedom. How are you and I are going to find freedom? That is the issue. How everybody else finds freedom, it's not, don't complicate it. That's not our job at this point. Our job is stabilize the reference point. So in that case, already the Akasha is not true. And certainly in deep sleep, the Akasha disappears. And why does it disappear? Because the mind disappears. These are things that we must learn about. You know, this is what, remember I had mentioned about this is going to be PhD level Vedanta. This is what Swami Akhandananda is teaching, the PhD level. So many instances are going to come. You can file it away if you want to. Instances of what is called PhD level Vedanta. And this could be one aspect of that. In fact, another, I'm just going to just give you some embellishment to that. Again, the normal Vedanta might be that there is a body and the mind is there as a Sukshma Sharira, and the mind is part of the body along with the body. PhD level Vedanta is no. There's only the mind. And the body is in the mind. Akasha is in the mind. The mind, as we have discussed in the Shiva Sankalpa Sukta, is the first expression of Maya. Then comes everything else. This is the Sukshma Sharira. Huge things about the mind we will study. Mind-blowing, honestly, how explanation of all this in the Karika that will come. Anyway, all I'm saying is this. Long story short, Anubhava is the strongest evidence And what is my Anubhava? So if you say logic, logic is the Akasha is always there. Anubhava is no, it is not always there. It disappears at deep sleep, then comes back again. And it is also different between the dream state and the waking state. That is the Prabala. Prabala means it is stronger than logic. This is going to be a very important thing. So Anubhava, Aparoksha Anubhava, is going to, which is what we are going to have to follow throughout. The Shruti guides us, so it's obviously we're very indebted to it, indebted to the Shruti, because without its guidance, we would never have seen the presence of what this means. That the logic of Anubhava being superior to logic also was given by the Shruti. So the Shruti is the master that guides us. But the main thing is that Sakshat Karanat Anubhava. And we have to see the nature of Atma. What is the relationship between Anubhava and Atma? We will see this as we go along. So now we can say the definition of a complete person is Brahman, not Akasha. Akasha is just, it is nothing compared to Brahman. That is just a side show, even though it is very pervasive, it is all pervasive during the Jagrat Avastha. Only during the Jagrat Avastha, only 1/3 of the time. The other time it is different, it's not there. So you cannot say it is all pervasive. It is only all pervasive in the Jagrat Avastha. Brahman, so it is not all pervasive. Brahman is all pervasive. There is no place where it is not. There is no condition which is not Brahman. That is the definition of a complete person. And that is what I want to be. I want to be a complete person. Then we will see, why is it that I don't feel I'm a complete person? Because it's very interesting logic. This is going to be a huge thing. Just follow this. If Brahman is a complete person, can it exclude me? Cannot. You're violating your definition even before by taking the first step. This is a huge topic, beautiful topic. We're going to really get into that in time to come. Anyway, I'm going to only leave it at that. I'll come back to it later on. So here, in summary, I don't know that I'm a complete person. Why don't I know that? Because I am only looking at myself partially, in a very skewed way. My names are also partial, as we had just discussed a little while ago, incomplete. My understanding is also incomplete, relative. I don't know the completeness of myself, and I don't have a name to go along with it. There we say, as the Mandukya Karika will say, Om, in fact, is the correct name for you because it is the name of a complete person. So I can say that let it be a name of a complete person, but it cannot be my name because I'm not a complete person. Already I'm violating logic. You cannot say, let it be the name of a complete person, but not me. That means there is no complete person, isn't it? That is the logic we have to follow. In my cursory definition of what is a complete person, which is Brahman, and what is me, I'm already violating it, confusing myself completely. So what is the end result of that? I am only looking at myself in a very partial way and not seeing that the so-called complete person, which is Brahman, which is derived from the dhatu brihat, which is big as a noun. Big means unlimited. Satyam jnanam anantam. Has to include me. Must be me. We'll go into that much more later. But for the time being, the reason that I don't follow that, I don't understand that, I only look upon myself as an incomplete person, limited person, is because this is how the beginning of this life is. This is what was given to me. I don't understand. I can't look at myself as a complete person. This is given in the very famous mantra in the Kathopanishad. You must know this. And by the way, what I would say is that these mantras that I am citing, again, you should do is to make a note of mantras that should be reviewed by you. You remember in the goals that I had set for this course 2 weeks ago, I guess it was, one of the goals was, if you go back and review your notes, you will see that, is that as we study the course, you should see which Vedantic mantras are driving the essence of this course. They have to. This is not something which is separate from Vedanta. This is Vedanta. And how it is Vedanta is because of the coupling between the various Karikas and the Shruti Vakyas. And make a list of them. You already made, I already made one reference to that, that is from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. No, I'm sorry, what am I saying? It is from the Mundaka Upanishad, right? Dvasuparna. And then we go through the last time. Remember the example of two friends. That is going to come up again between Jiva and Ishvara. I have it here somewhere, sorry. That one I do have it. So it's a Mundaka Upanishad. Dva Suparna Sayuja Sakhaya Samanam Vriksham Parishasvajate Tayoho Anyaf Pippalam Swadanyat Ashnan Anashnanyaha Abhichakashiti. So one suggestion would be that you really do make a list of these Shruti Vakyas that are referenced. Another Shruti Vakya now is, why is it that I don't understand that I'm a complete person? Because in the Kathopanishad, in beginning chapter 2, first verse is Paran Chikhani Vyatranat Swayambhuhu Tasmat Paran Pashyati Na Antaratman Kaschadhiraha Pratyakatmanam Aikshat Avrit Chakshu Amritatvam. And so the essence of this verse is, the reason I don't understand the completeness of myself is because I am so focused on seeing things out, seeing things. You don't have to do anything outside of me or inside of me. Just experiencing things. I'm so involved, so busy, so completely taken up by it that my mind never has a chance to do what? To look into the phenomena of who is seeing this? How am I seeing this? What is the relationship between me and the world? How does it all come up? Even as an example of waking from the sleep, that I'm a totally different person. And then all of a sudden, Yad Jagrato Duram Udaiti. As we just saw the verse number 1. Tatu Suptasya Tathaiveti. That all of a sudden I see this explosion of things. And then it just goes back. How is this happening? Have we ever looked into that? And it is not surprising that we have not looked at it, because the way our sense organs and are all outward bound. Paran Chekhani. Vyatranat Swayambhu. Swayambhu means Paramatma. It's as though he's cut off my ability to see myself. It's a complaint against him. Why did you do that? So we'll discuss all that maybe some other time. But here the thing is that because of this unwavering focus on the drishya, I'm unable to look into drik. And then the second line says very interestingly, Kaschit dhira pratyakatmainam aikshat. He says some people, I don't know how that happens. And this is true. How it happens that you are now involved in looking at something totally different. Kaschit dhira pratyakatmanam aikshat. You look at the whole, not only the Atma, but the whole phenomena of how it all emanates, the thoughts emanate, they become things. It's an examination of the whole aspect. It's not just saying I'm a Sakshi, as I mentioned. There's a whole lot to understand. And here, so both Viveka, Vairagya, all those kinds of things have to be brought in. And we should know this, that each of us has two aspects to ourselves. One is the changing aspect, on the surface. But the other one is an unchanging aspect, the very depth of myself, which is unchanging. It's kind of like, it is one thing to just observe the disturbances on the surface of an ocean, the breakers, the waves, the foam, and perhaps become even an expert in that. That, this is what happens. These weather people, they can predict that on such and such day, because of the moon's thing, also the wind and so on, we are going to have a huge breaker, a lot of ocean waves. Just recently, we've had such damage in Capitola, near Santa Cruz. All these things were taken away. So they can predict it to a certain extent. They say that please don't go and swim because the ocean is very dangerous. Still, it is at the very surface level, very different from what is happening inside the ocean, the depth of it, the how just the waves is just a small part of it. Similarly, exactly the same thing is when I'm looking at things outside, including my own body and mind and how I act and do, how others act and do, I'm only looking at the surface of the whole thing. Underneath that, there is a whole ocean, Chidakasha, Chidambaram, that is creating all this, how it happens. And so if I am just an expert in the waves, it's good, but that's nothing compared to an expert on the depth of the ocean, the things inside the ocean, the stability of it, the unchanging nature of it. And so say each one of us is like that. We have two components to ourselves. But right now, paranchikhani vyatranat kaschadhiraha pratyakatmanam aikshat. Somehow our ruchi, our interest is woken up by the Shruti, and we are able to see the enormous depth of who I am. When I do that, that's when I have a possibility of discovering my complete self. So let's go back to the word aham that we had started on, so we can complete it. Aham is the name of the complete being. How is that? Because I have the ability of observing an enormous display of different dravyas in front of me. Both sukshma dravyas and sthula dravya, enormous variety. And an enormous variety of names associated with each one of them. Enormous. And all names with their corresponding dravyas are constituted in one of the following sound symbols. And so this is what is given in Vedanta, in Devanagari, or in any other language for that matter, but very well done in Devanagari. It starts with the vowel A, the first part of aham, and ends with the sibilant ha, the very last one. And in between, there is a variety of vowels and consonants and sibilants and semivowels, all of them interchangeably creating different sounds and therefore different dravyas. It's a complete set. A and ha. And there is so much more to talk about aham that we will, in the interest of time, probably not do that today. We mentioned some of that. Hanyate. Na hanyamane sharire. Aham means cannot be killed. Another one is you cannot abandon it. You cannot abandon yourself. This is a very important thing. You cannot get rid of yourself. Even if you commit suicide, you'll adopt a new body, but you won't be able to get rid of your aham. So here there was a variety of reasons, all giving an idea of the completeness. And by the way, it is, it's so interesting. There's so many languages in this world. So many different languages. I don't think anybody can even categorize. In India, they say all these Adivasis, Aboriginals, they have their own language. And you go around the world and you find, my goodness, it's just incredible. So it's just a convention. Somehow or the other, I don't know how languages start. Somehow some people decide that we're going to name this baby, and then they teach the baby. There was a joke that after 1947, when India got independence, in India, English was only spoken by people who really used to work for Britishers. We were slaves to Britishers, and so only those who were in contact with the British authorities knew English and could speak it and so on. And after a lot of practice, you could learn English. So after the partition, there was one guy who was a minister, some minister. He was invited to England, and he came back to India after visiting England. And everybody said, so how was England? He says, my goodness, that country is so advanced I cannot believe it. So people said, well, what do you mean? Give us an example. He says, do you know, I saw a 2-year-old speaking English fluently. This is how advanced they were. Means you can teach a child a language in different ways. So the word aham is not just in Sanskrit and English. It's in all languages. There are some combination of sounds that correspond to the various dravyas. All of them are in the consciousness of the person. They are set up by me. So I am beyond the very language itself. I am beyond even the completeness. This is how complete I am. That they come and go, but I am still there. That is the sense of the Aham. Anyway, we'll talk more about that. Now I want to go back to the story that I had mentioned to you, which Swami Akhandananda had pointed out. A very, very interesting story about this dialogue between Jiva and the Ishvara. And I will end with that. This is how we will just finish the class with this story. The story, if you recall from the last class, was that the Jiva rhetorically was upset with Ishvara. That, listen, you and I are friends, we are brothers. Didn't you say that? Dwa Suparna Sakhaya. We are sitting on the same tree and we are supposed to be friends. Didn't you say that? Ishvara said, yes, that's true. And yet, I have nothing and you have everything. Is this fair? Two brothers and two friends? Shouldn't they share something? So Ishvara said, okay, all right, if that's your complaint, then I think I can redivide everything into two parts. So they'll all be equal. So the Jiva said, okay, all right, let's do that. So Ishvara said, I tell you what, I am going to keep the rupas, all the forms, and you keep all the namas, all the names. Abhidhana is your, Abhideya is me. So the Jiva must have thought too, and he probably told Ishvara this. You're again tricking me. Again you're tricking me. You've been tricking me all along, and now again, after you promise there's going to be an equal division, you take all the good stuff and you give me names for it. Am I that stupid? I won't accept this. This is not a fair. The Ishvara says, wait. You don't understand what you're getting. I am actually giving you the keys of the kingdom. Keys of the kingdom. I am just keeping a manifestation, but the way the manifestation came about is with you. You have the ability to manufacture. I am only taking the things that are already manufactured. You know, they say, this is kind of like, they say you can give fish to somebody to eat, or you can teach somebody how to catch fish. Which one is better? Eating a fish, for those that do eat a fish, is okay. But if you teach a fisherman how to catch fish, that is so much more. It reminds me, a couple of years back I had gone to a social get-together, and my wife always teases me and others that my husband is a crunch master. I think we all like crunchy things. So this hostess had made some chivda, which in North India is a crunchy mixture of things as a snack. So I'd taken that with the tea or coffee, and I said, "Wow, this is very tasty." So this hostess told me, "Oh, you like it? I'll pack some for you." So I said, I appreciate you giving me the chivda. That's very good. But what I really like to know is, can you teach me how to make it? So she kind of resisted it, laughed it off, and says, "Oh, yeah, yeah, sure, you come over someday, I will make it." So I had gone to her place a few more times, and every time she would make this chivra, and I'll remind her, "You still haven't taught me." Finally, a few months ago, my wife and I had visited her, and she invited over for lunch, and I came up with one condition. I said, "Listen, I'll come for lunch, but only if you teach me how to make the chivra." She says, "Fine." So she actually taught me. I haven't made it yet. It's written down somewhere. I haven't had the time. So Ishvara told Jiva, "Hey, listen, you don't understand. I am telling you how to make dravyas." So Jiva calmed down a little bit because he was really mad that he's being tricked. He said, "Really? Okay, tell me what's going on." This is a very important thing. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier, which is that a growth in a human being is not just being on the surface, but to understand the completeness of the ocean, not just on the surface. And that completeness of the ocean, similarly here, the completeness of the self, can only come if I understand exactly how it is incomplete. What do you mean by completeness? And how do I achieve it? What is the aparoksha anubhuti of it? Not just some kind of a logic. I want some proof. So from that standpoint, to complete this example, Swami Akhandananda says, listen, a dravya, which is rupa, is outwardly bound. Paranchikhani has no path to an understanding of the completeness of the ocean behind you. Has no path. If there is a path, it comes from understanding the nama, the name of the completeness. How? How can you say that? What do you mean by it has a path to completeness, whereas Rupa does not? Because Nama emanates from you. And you have to observe how the name came about. It has to start from the very source of the truth. And then how one becomes many. Ekam becomes anekam, as we will study in the Karika. This is just the beginning. But if you have a chance, if you have a path to understand it, it can only be if you look into that part of it, not just looking at outside and enjoying and so on, which is okay, which is childish. Kaschadhira atmanam aikshat. And that comes from the name. Even though they are the same thing. How are the same thing? That all comes from, we already did that in the last class. It comes from the upaya. So So the parent has to couple the table with the word table. That is the upaya. That has to come about separately. But once it is done, the name table is just as good, much more useful. The name COVID is much more useful than the actual COVID because you can stay away from it. So similarly, the name Om is much more important. So pratika, the pratika of Om is more subtle. We also saw that it is the sound which is the guna of akasha, which is much more subtle than the rupa, which is the guna of of surya, which is the eyes, tejaha, fire. So for lots of reasons, the name is very important. Why? Because the analysis of the Om, analysis of the name would lead you to in of yourself, not just the surface that you are seeing outside. So this is why Ishvara in this dialogue mollified. He put his arms around the Jiva and said, listen, will I gyp you? You are me. You're my friend. You think you are getting gypped. You are not. Stay with it and you will examine it and you will see that you are really a complete person. In fact, you and I are not different. So please stay with it and try to understand it and you're going to be okay. So that's the sense of the name. And so with that, I will close the class and we will go back to a much more specific discussion about the verses Tasya Upavyakhyanam Bhutam Bhavat Bhavishyatiti, and then the second verse, which will be very interesting, that we will see. Okay, so with that I close the class. Om Asatoma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Please stay with it. Yes, Shanti Kumar, you're right. That's the one. you're giving um, the regular one, but there is a particular one which says about the old person. I'll try to recall it. I was just looking at it. I don't know what happened. Oh, before that, I forget. I forgot to mention. We were looking at mantras from Kathopanishad, etc., and Mundaka. One book you may want to take a look at, which is a very important book for serious students of Vedanta. It's a book called The Concordance to the Principal Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita by Colonel Jacob. Okay, so what this is he's done a masterful job of categorizing the mantras that you may know portions of, but to find out where it is given completely. Okay, so and this is all principal Upanishads, I presume the 10 Upanishads, and also Bhagavad Gita. So if you just know snippets of some verse, but if you want to see exactly where the verse is and study it a little bit more depth, then this is a very good book to have. I think should be available. It is, mine is like 50 years old. And the publishers are Motilal Banarsi Das, which is a very famous publishing house in India. So you should be able to get that. I'm sure it's available in Amazon also, but it'll be much more expensive here. So if you are interested, you may want to look into that. In any case, so very happy that you are all here. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how many people are able to follow both the classes, both the Saturday class and the Tuesday class. And we'll just go from there. Okay, very good.